Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Teen Take and Make at Manlius Library. In your kit, you will have received one of these little yogurt jars with a plastic top and some paints, orange, kind of a gold, black, and a little bit of brown, and a paintbrush. If you have other sizes of paintbrushes that you like using at home, you're welcome to use those as well. What you will need from home is a cup of water to wash your brushes and some cloths. So what we're doing today is we're going to make pumpkin jars. And the first step, we're going to set these aside, is painting the pumpkin orange. Now, some of the paints that we're using are a little thicker to make it a little easier to transport. If you find the paint is too thick, they are acrylics, you're welcome to take a little bit of water. Start with a very little bit of water and mix it in, and it will make the paints a little bit thinner and easier to spread sometimes. Okay? You want to make sure you're using clean water to do that. So, all right. So, getting some orange paint on our brush. We're going to paint the inside of the jar. If you have other jars at home, this works really well with mason jars or stemless glasses, like those stemless wine glasses that are so popular now. Obviously you're painting on the inside, so you won't be able to use it to hold food or to drink out of. And just go all the way around on the inside with your orange paint. Okay, and you can pretty much do it however you want. If you want to leave it a little streaky for more of a rustic look, or if you want to make sure you go over every little spot, that is entirely a creative decision, up to you. But I painted the inside of my jar. I didn't paint the bottom. You don't really have to, because they're going to sit on the table, but if you, or on a shelf or wherever you want to put them. But if you want to, you can. I do like to go around a little bit. It just finishes the look for when they're sitting. Okay, so there we go. I think that's good. Add a little bit. And as it dries, you'll see spots maybe that need to be touched up. Because this paint is a little thicker than some of the paints we've used before, it will drip less inside as you're painting, which is nice. But it's also easier to leave behind a big glob of paint, which you also don't want to do. Okay, so we've got our pumpkin painted orange. I'm going to scrape off the rest of that orange paint. Put my brush in there. Put that on and set it aside. Remember, if you put your caps back on your paints, they will stay usable. I haven't had a set dry out yet, and my longest test set has been going for over a month. So, and like I said, these are acrylic, so if while they're sitting covered they get a little thicker, start to dry a little bit, you can always add a drop or two of water to help reconstitute it. Okay, so we've got our pumpkin painted orange. Now we're going to paint on the face. And you can do this one of two ways. Actually, you can do it however you want to, but I'm going to show you one of two ways. The first way I'm going to show you is using the gold. And paint on the jack-o'-lantern face that you want it to be. If you have a marker and you want to draw it on first, or just draw it on instead of paint it on, you could do that. Like I said, if you have a smaller brush, you can do that. Okay, so there's an eye. Let's see if we can get another eye to match it. Okay, there's two eyes. Okay, so I'm just doing that. And then just same. Okay, and then fill it in a little bit. Okay, and then what we're going to do is let this dry. And when it's dry, we'll outline it with black. But in the meantime, let me show you the second way. Rinse that off, get our orange paint back out, put the yellow away. A little bit more water to that. Okay. You want to be careful not to add too much water, because then it'll dilute it and you won't have that nice opaque finish that you get from acrylics. It'll look more like a watercolor paint. Okay, so I'm going to quickly paint the inside of this jar and show you the second If you wanted to use this as a candy jar or to put something edible or as a drinking glass, you'd have to do the painting on the outside. I do the painting on the inside because I really like the shiny look with the orange underneath. But if you wanted to use it as a drinking glass, you'd paint it on the outside and leave the rim free of any paint. Because as I told you, this is acrylics and they will wash right off. The other thing, if you were going to paint it on the outside, you'd want to seal it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to wash, even hand wash your glass. Okay, so we've got our second jar. So we've got enough paint in there to do a couple. I'll wash that off. Okay. The other thing you could do is just forego the yellow and just do the black. Now your black paint is going to be not quite as thick. It's from the more runny, watery batch of paints that we used to start. So you could just do And if you wanted to do this as more of a fall decoration and not necessarily for Halloween, you could just leave it orange and not paint a face on it at all. Okay, so we've got our face here. You could fill it in. I actually kind of like it unfilled. So I think I'm gonna leave that like that. I'm gonna rinse the black off my brush. Cover that black paint back up. And there's a couple of different ways to finish your jars. You could just leave it like this and drop a tea light in. I would recommend the flameless ones, the little battery operated tea light candles. You could drop that in, or you can take the cover, and I sent everybody home with a bonus brown paint. You could use green if you wanted, but in my experience, pumpkins at this time of year pretty much have brown. Okay, so you put the lid on, and being careful to not touch where you painted and it's still wet, just paint the cover brown. Oh, that's my water. That's my paint. with this, I like to leave the paint a little thick and uneven because it makes it look actually a little bit more like an actual wooden stem, like an actual plant stem or hair. So if you leave it kind of textured, it'll look like a stem. One thing I did that I don't recommend, now that I'm thinking about it, is I put the top on already. You want to let the orange paint dry before you put the top on. Okay, but there he is. I'll let that dry. Once the top is dry, I'll take it off and that'll let the orange paint inside dry. So, that is not quite dry yet, but I want to show you the final step to this one. And we will do that very carefully. Cap that back up. Now, if you like it like this, you could just leave it like that. Or you could very carefully, one of the reasons I like these brushes is because they dry out very flat. Oh, it's got a loose. Okay, so just a little bit of paint, and we're gonna go around the yellow so that it looks like a jack-o'-lantern with a candle inside it. Now, one of the good things about acrylic paints is, especially when it's wet, but even when it's dry, you can remove it from things like glass or plastic. So if you make a mistake or you just don't like how it came out and you want to try something different, you can wipe it off. There we go. So we have, let's put the cap back on this. So there's your two different ways of doing a jack-o'-lantern. Or, like I said, you could just do the cover and display it like that. And it's a fall, Thanksgiving, harvest decoration. What I tend to do at home is display them like this for Halloween and then turn them around and they become a harvest decoration for Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's project. I will see you next week when we're going to be crocheting washcloths and or dishcloths.